يا الله يا رحمن يا رحيم.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the Bridge to Faith show.
Welcome to this week's episode of Bridge to Faith, and we're here just on the edge of Wales and England. That bridge right behind me separates the two, but they're still both part of the UK. In today's program on Bridge to Faith, we're going to be talking about faith, or iman as it's called in the Arabiya, and what it is, and how we get it, how we deal with it in today's world. All that and more. Oh yes, and something about the Lughatu Arabiya, the Arabic language. We've got that coming up too. And maybe we're just going to find someone to tell us about their particular bridge to faith. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam rasulullah. You are watching Guidus TV, and we're continuing our program, Bridge to Faith. Just a bit earlier, you were able to see us standing together, John and myself, right by the bridge between Wales and England. And even though it was a bit brisk, the sun was out, looked pretty good. We're back in the studios now, and we wanted to talk about something very important about Bridge to Faith. When we're talking about faiths, we're not just talking about taking somebody with no faith at all and bringing them to the fold of Islam. What we're really talking about is sharing faiths, understanding others' faiths, and presenting our faith as well. And one of the things that we've been discussing, especially with relation to the holidays coming up, is the impact that it has on our children when we tell them fairy stories and insist that that's a part of our belief, that that's something that should be a part and parcel of us going to paradise.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I was speaking about, my own background, my own history, and things that happened in my childhood, it really affected me a lot when I learned that there's no Easter bunny that lays colored eggs. There's no Santa Claus that's going to go down a chimney. There's no reindeer that are going to fly.
I'm joking.
And then I found that you, John, also had the same experience, and it was traumatic. And what we want to talk about is not that we're trying to put down people's holidays and celebrations. We don't want to stop people from having fun, coming together with their families, enjoying the meal. What we want to do is make sure we understand the impact that it has on a child when a parent, a teacher, a preacher, a close relative, and others join together almost to present something that's a blatant lie that the child is brought up to believe is real for years, and then suddenly the impact that it has. If we want to talk about what is the spirit of St. Nicholas, I think we should have that in our program.
Yeah.
If we want to talk about what is the impact of bringing pretty things into your home and decorating, this is another subject. But when we try to tie in with ancient religions and what their superstitions were, and then bring that in as though it was true, what I'm saying is, I think that that is something very dangerous, and it gets away from our real principle of taking the basis of faith, which is based on beliefs. Beliefs have to be based on truth, or at least something that you could either prove or not disprove. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
And if I could, John, I'd like for you to speak just for a minute on this topic yourself.
Yeah, I mean, generally we have different festivals. You know, Muslims, Christians, Jews, non-Muslims, non-believers. Everyone has different festivals which they celebrate. And Christmas is a time that Christians, you know, they have a celebration. And generally it's a great time for family and friends to come together, you know, exchange gifts, bring the family together. They might attend church and things like that.
Let's don't forget the food.
Don't forget the food.
Yes.
You need to have the turkey. You know, I mean, growing up, Christmas, growing up, we was all year round, we'll be waiting for Christmas. You know, and we can't wait for Christmas. And from a very young age, you know, in England, we brought up to believe in Father Christmas. I know in America it's Santa Claus.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And this was a belief. This was something that I was told from a very young age that there was a man called Father Christmas, and just before Christmas we'd actually go and visit him. We'd queue up to go and see Santa's grotto, or Father Christmas's grotto. And I was told about this many years later, but when my parents took me to see Father Christmas for the first time, we was queuing around the grotto, and there was that
lining up.
Yeah, it was lining up for to go and visit Father Christmas, and there was a huge train set circling the grotto.
What is grotto?
Like his house, where a make-believe house, not the real one.
Santa's place.
Not the real one. So, as I was queuing, I fell in love with this train set. And my mum said, "What do you want?" I said, "I want a train set." And I'm pointing at this huge train set, So I went in, sat on his knee, and he's a total stranger. We don't know who he is. I'm sure he's a nice guy. Sat on his knee, and he said, "What's your name?" And I said, "John." And he said, "What would you like for Christmas?" And I said, "A train set." And he said, "Well, we'll get a train set for you." And then he goes to the side of his bag and he gives me a gift. About this big.
That's nice.
Yeah. Anyway, when I got outside, I ripped it open.
And what did you expect to see?
I was expecting a huge train set.
In the little
the same
box?
one going around his grotto in this small box. I was a kid.
Well, Santa could do anything, right?
If he can go down chimneys and fly, we'll come to that later.
All right.
When I opened it, it was a teapot. And
teapot?
A teapot.
Like a cup of tea.
Yeah, like a small tea set. It had a teapot and a few cups. And I'm looking at this tea set, and my mum and dad said I just burst into tears and I'm throwing a tantrum in the middle of the shopping centre. And I knew something wasn't right. And so I was expecting a train set. This is just one of the first stories, but it's funny when you look back at it. But from a very young age, we're told by the most trustworthy people in our lives, our own parents, that there's this man called Father Christmas. He spends all year making presents for children around the world, which later you realise, what descriptions do you have of him in America?
Well, it's strange that you mentioned train set, because I also had the same thing, that I wanted a train set.
Huh.
And I wanted it so bad, and I got a train set, by the way. Wasn't the one I wanted exactly, but it would do fine. It was a wind-up. You could wind it up, put it on the tracks, and away it would go around. And it was really cute, and I really was excited. The following year, though, we moved from the north of the United States, where the snow and Christmas trees are naturally there. We moved to Houston, Texas, where the winter time you could go down to Galveston and go swimming because it's not that cold, In fact, we did do that. But anyway, here we are. We were in a travel trailer because we were relocating. And it came time for Christmas. And I panicked. I went to my mother. "Mom, Santa can't come." "Why?" "We don't have a chimney." She said, he can come down that little pipe there. And the pipe is right over the stove. And I looked at that pipe, was about that big around. I said, "Are you sure?" "Yeah, he can come down that." Okay. So that night we were going to lay down and get to rest and wait for Christmas. We had a tiny little tree. And then I realized, oh my God, we've got the stove on to keep warm. The fire will be there. You'll burn him up. "Mom, you have to turn off the stove. You have to turn it off." "Why?" "Because Santa will get burned." "Oh, no, he won't get burned." And I'm thinking, I know the one who doesn't get burned by fire, than the hellfire. And he wears red too, and I'm getting really confused. But anyway, we got our gifts the next day, but the thing that happened the following year was at school, I heard from some of the other kids, they're making fun of me. And they said, "What? You know there's no Santa." "No." Now listen, don't talk like this. Because from my father, my mother, my aunts, uncles, cousins, distant relatives, and my preacher, my teacher, everybody I had known all my life had always supported the fact that although you don't see him, he's there. Although you don't know, he knows everything. He knows when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake.
Oh.
He knows if you've been bad or good. So be good for goodness sake. That's the song. And how in the world are you going to tell me you don't believe?
Yeah.
And so I go running
sleigh
home.
bells here, are they ringing?
I went home to my mom.
Yeah.
And she's standing there washing dishes. And I go running in and I said, "Mom, Mom." And she said, "What's the matter now?" I said, "Mom, the kids at school, they said there's no Santa Claus." She didn't even look up at me. She just kept watching. She said, "Don't tell your sisters." I was shocked. I was mortified. And then if Star Wars had been out at that time, which came 50 years later, but had Star Wars been out at that time, I would have said, "My mom's gone over to the dark side." Because this is not...
She's one of them.
I wanted to call long distance, all the way back to my grandmother, and hear her reassuring voice tell me, "Your mom's wrong. There's a Santa Claus. You're okay. She's just become a disbeliever." This is what I imagined. Then I laid down that night, and I thought, it can't be. My dad's here, and you know what? I jumped out of bed. I went into the living room to the couch, and they said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I just want to lay here for a minute." They said, "Well, you should go to bed." I said, "Oh, I will. And then I pretended I fell asleep, turned my face over to the back of the couch, and listened. And I heard my mom or dad one was saying, "Well, I think he's asleep anyway. Yeah, let's get the stuff in and get this over with." That couldn't have been. And together, I realized they're both now disbelievers.
Take your dad
Yeah.
as well.
And she must have won him over. They started bringing stuff out of another room of the house and putting everything around the tree, even a bicycle that I wanted so bad. And the next morning when I woke up, the whole idea was for my parents, they're winking, saying, just go along with everything. And it felt like this is really bad. And then later, don't tell your sisters, they're not old enough yet. Not all children have that same background. Some of the parents will tell them, "Well, it's the spirit of Christmas. They're really not a guy going to come down our chimney." But, it's a fun thing to tell stories, and it's a story. That would be one thing. But here's the impact, John. Imagine a child who has been totally convinced by the people the closest to him that what I believe is based on what I've grown up with. I have to believe it because everybody's saying that. Everybody I know is saying that. We're going to take this short break and be back with more Bridge to Faith to get guided on Guide Us TV.
Ya Allah, Ya Allah.
We're back. You're watching Guide Us TV, and this is a special Bridge to Faith episode talking about celebrations and especially the effect and impact that it can have on our youth as they're growing up, especially when they deal with fairy stories and things that are not real. And when is the best time to straighten these stories out? And to help us do that, we're here with John Fontain in the UK, and we're talking about these celebrations. Now, do you folks here in jolly old England have anything to do with a rabbit in the spring of the year that comes up with colored eggs?
Around Easter time. Easter time, we have, before we were talking about Christmas time, when we had the story of Father Christmas and the sleigh, Rudolph, You know, you leave the glass of wine, the mince pie.
Oh.
And
Glass of milk and cookies in the
Yeah,
States.
in England, it's a glass of the finest red, as they say.
The squeezing of the grapes.
This is what they say. They have a mince pie and a carrot. And when you come down in the morning, the carrot's half gone. You know, Rudolph has had a bite. The mince pie, you know, sometimes it's gone, sometimes there's a bite out missing. But without a doubt, every time the wine is gone.
The grape juice is gone.
The grape juice.
All right.
Is gone. So this enforces your belief as a child, you know, in Christmas. So another belief which we had, I mean, I never actually personally believed in this. This was something that I knew was not real from day one, but a common one which many people are told is the Easter Bunny. And as you said, around the time of Easter, the Easter Bunny would come and lay eggs, chocolate eggs.
You guys had chocolate eggs.
Chocolate eggs. I mean, what eggs did you have?
Well, they're colored eggs.
Okay.
And when you crack them open, you have a hard-boiled egg inside.
Serious? We have chocolate eggs, big ones, Cadbury's, different...
No advertising.
Okay, no advertising.
But seriously,
Yeah.
we had regular chicken eggs,
Mm.
the shape, yeah, but they're dyed different colors and designs and colors of all kinds on them. And then these are left laying in places, supposedly by the bunny rabbit, and then you go out there and you're looking for them and you get all excited.
Well, that's the old saying. What came first, the rabbit or the egg?
I don't know how I felt for that one, but anyway, we'll move forward.
Yeah.
One of the things that we're doing is we're going along here, we're showing you some examples from our website, and you can see some of the very real images of Father Christmas and Santa Claus, as well as images from the stories about the Easter Bunny.
You know what actually amazed me is all these stories as a kid, believing in them, you know, such as Father Christmas. And none of my, you know, at school we had a few Muslim friends. There was a few, there was a Pakistani friend of mine, and he never got any presents. So I was always wondered why Father Christmas didn't give him any presents.
What did it make you think?
Well, it's just confusing. I mean, you're thinking, is it racism? What is it?
Oh.
You know, I don't know what to think. I mean, but...
Did the Pakistani children or the Muslim children, did they seem to be bothered by the fact they didn't receive it?
No.
Not bothered at all?
Not at all. But they never went to see him when he came to the school.
Okay.
Yeah.
But of course now we understand why.
Yeah, now I do. Yeah, now I've come into the...
And this is the
faith of
whole
Islam.
point behind what we're talking about. Because regardless of how much you regard a particular event or celebration, the stories that you heard when you were growing up, and you consider them to be fun things to share, if it becomes to the extent that it has an impact, a negative impact on the child, it must be taken into consideration very seriously as to whether or not this is really worth it, and is it really fun, or is it something that could impact the child and actually cause them to disbelieve in everything altogether. Because after all, if it can be proven that there's no such thing as a tooth fairy, no such thing as a rabbit with colored eggs or chocolate eggs, and all the business of Santa Claus and reindeer coming down the chimney, giving billions of toys to billions of children, and by the way, missing all of Africa.
Missing all of Africa and Asia and, you know, anyone who doesn't believe in it.
Because they don't have it. So these kinds of things that we're passing off, and there's some others as well, but what if we, and I'm just saying generally speaking, all faiths, if we would look at this as being something that would cause children later to disbelieve in everything we told them. Because with the example we had about Santa Claus, we said
that he, according to the stories, he knows everything. Well, only Almighty Allah knows everything.
Yeah.
He hears everything. Only Almighty Allah hears everything. And he sees everything. It's only Allah who knows and sees everything.
And throughout the year, your parents would threaten you with it. I'll tell Father Christmas. You know, like as if you're accountable to Father Christmas.
We heard the same. Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to tell Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Whoa! I mean, that was like.
Do you want your bike? Do you want your bike? Do you want your roller skate? But another aspect of this isn't the material side of it. What we're seeing now with this extreme materialism, this competition, especially with the kids at school, you know, they're competing for the best toys, the best games, the best trainers, whatever it may be. And in the school, the kids, you know, we have a lot of bullying, and, you know, families what are less fortunate than other families, you know, it's very difficult. And it's Christmas becomes such a stress on the family and the children. And is it fun? Is it worth it?
You know, about a decade ago or so, maybe a little bit more, there was an article that came out telling us that the number one day out of the year for suicide was the day after Christmas. Because many people were holding on. There's some psychiatrists speaking about it, that a number of people holding on, just let me get through the holidays, let me get this one thing done, and then all of a sudden, all of that's finished, everybody's gone, and none of the things came about like I hoped for, and then they take their own life.
And the bill comes through.
I don't know about the bill. I hadn't even thought about that. That's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
That kills the bank account. I think that, to be fair, I'm not telling people, and I don't think it would be fair to me to say, you know, don't have any fun. What I'm saying is, how about just have fun, but let's hold back on these stories unless we make sure they understand, oh, this is just a fun story. Wouldn't it be funny if, something like that, and maybe the children would be able to deal with it better. Now, as far as Muslims are concerned, this is a whole separate subject, and now we're talking about a particular faith. Up to now, we've been just talking in general. This kind of thing can affect the way children grow up, and you're looking at building a very strong case against belief at all, because you have let them down again and again and again. Now you want to come and say there's a God, and it'd be like, no, why should I believe you now? Well, you know, you cried wolf how many times, and now you're telling me this story? Keep it. And now they're at an age where they're much older and looking around and hearing other things and opportunities to go far away from following the basic tenets of faith coming from the Abrahamic faith. Now we're talking now about Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. All of them attributing the creation to one God. All of them saying the worship of one God, talking about Adam being created from the dirt and his wife created from his side. All three faiths have these things in common. And then the story of Adam and Eve in the paradise, the devil tempting them, etc. After that, again, all three faiths they have that they had children. Then the two boys had a problem, one killing the other. After that, tribes and nations coming from it. And again, there's no argument here. These comprise over half the world's population today. And they're saying the same essence, that here is a chance for you to know something about God, although they'll each have a little different perception there. But the main thing is the Ten Commandments.
Surah Ikhlas in the Qur'an, which is the chapter 112 in the Qur'an. And that also, again, tells us that God is one.
True.
He's self-subsisting, he's unique. You know, he doesn't have partners, and there's nothing like him. You
That's
know,
true.
This is the essence, you know, between all the three Abrahamic faiths, which is the essence is belief in the one God. And this is, you know, there's many similarities, there's many things within the scriptures which agree
What
with each other.
in your investigation and my investigation have a lot of similarities. We didn't know each other really till just very recent months, and what we find that in our research a lot of similarities, which is that the way people have interpreted things is the problem. In other words, God doesn't have a problem, we do.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that when I sit and visit with other people of other faiths. But again, I want to come to, okay, here's a problem that we all have together, and that is our children growing up without faith. To elaborate on that for just a minute, I'd like to mention something we as Muslims understand. I'd like to share that with everybody. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, he taught us that each child is born already in the perfect condition with Almighty God. A child who dies, he says, is going to go right to paradise. Because it doesn't matter the religion of the parents, because the child isn't responsible for that yet. He hasn't made any decisions, conclusions, or actions. He or she is going to paradise.
Already born pure and in the state of belief.
Innocent. That was what I was trying to remember. Thank you. Yeah, pure and innocent. And we used to say innocent as a newborn baby.
Yeah.
So, yeah, babies, according to Islam, are pure, they're innocent. But then he, peace be upon him, the Prophet Muhammad, he said, the parents are the ones responsible for how they're going to turn out, whether they become a Jew, a Christian, or a fire worshiper, an idolater. They could become an idolater, because if the Jewish parents will raise them up properly in their faith, then that's what they will be. Same for Christians, same for Muslims. You've got something to teach the children, and it's very much about how we treat each other.
Well, that's it for this episode of Bridge to Faith, but stay tuned for more programs here. And by the way, a big thank you goes out to our brother John, who helped us with our program today here on the corner of Wales and England and the big bridge that you see here. MashaAllah. It's nice, isn't it? Until next time, for Bridge to Faith and Guidance TV, Yusuf Estes bidding you peace. Assalamu alaikum.
أنت البارئ المصور يا غفار يا قهار سبحان